Welcome back to Let's Play Blood Will Tell. For this video, we're going to take a look at all the swords that we didn't bother to equip during the main play. And to do that, we have to first return to Chapter 7, where we've unlocked a brand new sword. All we have to do to collect it is climb to the very summit of the tower, where we fought the Chimera. It's actually not too difficult with all the boss fights and door-to-door sections and other distractions removed. And here we will find a brand new sword, the Sword of the Eighth Cloud. Now, if you know what the Sword of the Twin Clouds does, you're about to be a bit disappointed. It actually has 7 points, not the full 8. And it is extremely effective for slice attacks, much like the Twin Clouds, but because slice attacks use a thrusting motion, only the top 3 points of the sword actually strike the enemy, so it triples the number of button presses you get. Even still, this is extremely effective for slice attacks, 1.5 times as much as the Twin Clouds, which was already pretty close to broken.
Away with you!
A note about slice attacks performed with these Cloud swords is that they have slightly more complicated patterns in the button prompts. It's not quite easy to tell, but each of the blocks there that has 4 button prompts in it can use all 3 different buttons. So this actually does slow me down considerably when doing slice attacks with these swords.
Away with you!
Can usually get 20 to 24 hits in each one. But that's 2 slice attacks and 2 new swords. And since I'm sure you want to see it, here's a slice attack with all the same button, using a Sword of the Eighth Cloud.
Yeah.
150 hits, and that was playing it slightly conservatively. I've gotten higher. But that's the Sword of the Eighth Cloud, and we're going to use it to grind up numerous swords that we didn't have before. And we'll be checking those all out, starting with all the +3 swords that we've never equipped in the entire game. Each of these swords, the basic one and the +2 can be found in the world, but the +1 and +3 have to be collected from enemies using slice attacks. First is the Poison Sword, collected from beetle-type enemies, specifically the Carnage Beetle for the +3. The Fire Sword is the only +3 sword collected from a Revenant class enemy, specifically the single sword variant. Most of the other swords are collected from the slightly lower level Skeletal Warrior class enemies, including this Lightning Sword +3, which we got at the same time as the 7-Body Slasher, which we got so much use out of. And that was from a 2-sword Skeletal Warrior. Up next is the Ice Sword, which we've never equipped one of. This, of course, comes from the Wendigo. Then there's the Sword of Protection, which of course combines all of the effects of the previous 4 swords. This comes from a spear-wielding Skeletal Warrior. You may recall the double helix effect on the Phoenix Blade, which also has the protection from all elements effect. Next is the Flashing Blade, acquired from the Skeletal Warriors who wield a shield, and it actually does flash at level 3. Very similar in effect to the Fool's Blade, which I'm told also has a Flashing Blade effect upon receiving a sufficiently high level. Any redundant sword you pick up adds to your Worn Blade count, so it is possible to grind up the Fool's Blade pretty quickly. The Flame Tongue is acquired from the Muck type enemy. The Blade of Tears you get from the Spectre Overlords. Sword of the White Tiger demonstrates the multiplicative effect of the additional pluses on each sword. Every additional level adds +5 speed. This, of course, is acquired from the Kappa, which means we could have gotten this sword all the way back in Chapter 1 if we had been absurdly lucky. The Luck Blade +3, we've already seen the +2. This comes from the Bloodstone Golem. Sword of Clarity. This sword is acquired from the dog-like Shadow Beast type enemies. And that's the last of the +3 swords. From here we can move on to a sword I've been trying to get pretty much the entire game. The Spectre Bane. Long have I sought thee. It's got a sparkling effect on it. And of course, it's going to eliminate this room full of specters with unbelievable expedience. 2-hit kills on the medium level specters. The Spectre Overlords take usually 3 to 4. Just hammering the light attack will clear out this room in no time. Quite a joy, and it turns out that the Spectre Bane is part of a cycle of swords, actually. The next one is the Bone Crusher, which has a similar effect on skeletal enemies. Let's check it out on these Revenants. Not quite as impressive because Revenants are actually formidable, but nonetheless, it deals with them faster than any other sword in the game is going to. 3 back strikes. And for our own amusement, take out some Wandering Skulls in a single hit. And the mid-level Skeletal Warriors also get eliminated in 2 to 3 hits. The final sword in this cycle is the Stonecutter, which of course is going to destroy golems. Stonecutter, by the way, comes from the basic level stone golems, the first ones we ever met. And the Bone Crusher came from the double sword Revenants. Stonecutter more or less levels the playing field against these golem-type enemies. They're still extremely hardy, but it deals with them fast enough that we don't have to worry about interrupting their attacks, because that's still virtually impossible to do. And that, unfortunately, is the end of the enemy-specific swords. Moving on, we have one more cycle of swords that we've never checked out. That would be the long swords. First up is the Vajra Blade. It's actually the second most powerful sword in the game after the double-edged sword. All that despite its relatively low level, which further nullifies the whole concept of sword levels. Can't quite fit it all on screen, so let's hop up on this ledge here so we can get a full look at it. Sort of a no-dachi going on. Its whole purpose is its length, being able to strike from a great distance. And more importantly, get multiple enemies in each of your swings. And as we can see from these mucks, we can stand outside of its attack range and still hit it. Up next is the Sparrow Blade, which is much weaker. To compensate for that, it offers a considerable 40-point boost to speed, and an excellent rainbow effect. Yeah, I really like the effect on this sword. And despite being much less powerful, it does get the job done pretty quickly. It's a very effective sword. In fact, this entire line of swords is excellent. If we had stumbled upon them sooner, I'd have been using them. They are acquired from Revenants, the Shield Revenant and the Two-Sword Revenant respectively. Except for this last one, Natural Grace. Doesn't quite live up to its claim of having both the Vajra Blade's strength and the Sparrow Blade's speed. Has a slightly lower level on each of those. But that said, this is an excellent endgame sword. Extremely fast and ridiculously powerful, and the increased length is nice as well. And this is acquired from the Hyakume enemies, the 100 Eyes. And it's well worth getting, I'd say. It's a solid candidate for one of the best swords in the game. And we have now seen all of the highest level swords, barring a few that we're going to see next time in the final chapter. Please join me for that.